All right. Hey, folks. Welcome to the Workplace Innovator Podcast. It's me, your host, Mike P., here alone for another episode of the show. That's right. It's about, 6 weeks into the new year, and we've done some different things so far here in 2026. And much of what we're doing is inspired by your comments during our summer survey last year. If you recall, I put out a podcast survey here, and the team at Aptura was curious to know what it is you all want more of. And one of those things was video, of course, and I hope you've enjoyed the videos we have put out so far. If you are listening to this episode on the traditional audio-only podcast platforms like Apple or Spotify, I would encourage you to check out the Aptura YouTube channel, and you'll find videos, full podcast episode videos for many of our interviews so far here in 2026. People like Brian Berthold of Cushman & Wakefield, an amazing way to kick off the year, followed by Vic Bangia and Rex Miller. These are people I went to because they've been guests on this show in the past, and I knew, first of all, they'd be willing to put themselves out there with me, DJ Mike P., and I really appreciate them. And then also because I wanted to get the latest and get their perspectives on the world of facility management, corporate real estate, and the workplace. And these are some of the people that I go to, and I know you appreciate their expertise and insights all the time. So I hope you enjoyed those, and I've got more on the way. I think you might have already seen on the Asset Champion podcast, I did a crossover video series with my friend from FEA, Maureen Roskoski. She was a guest here on this podcast, the Asset Champion podcast, and I was a guest on her show, My Facility podcast, which was really cool. So check those out if you haven't seen them. We've got more great things coming up in the coming weeks. I've got the typical workplace and facility management and leaders who have written books, experts, the people that we go to for the latest trends, challenges, and insights and inspiration, of course. But I also have some great just stories of people like you, facility management and real estate practitioners who are doing their best to care for the built environment and also the people who occupy our places and spaces. And that's what these shows are all about. That's what this community is all about. So I'm trying something different, a solo podcast, just me and you talking to the camera here. And I've done this once before. I've done it a couple times actually, but since the survey last summer, I put out an episode on the Asset Champion side where I shared some of my latest trends and challenges and things I'm focused on as we were heading towards the end of 2025. And here we are now. Time keeps moving. Steve Miller would tell you, time keeps on ticking into the future, and or slipping. I think the actual lyric is slipping into the future, but I digress. He basically inspired me to put out that audio only, but this is the first time I'm doing it on video, no edits, and wanted to see what would happen if I just click record and started to talk. Now, I got to be honest, I did put some notes together up here, so forgive me if I peek above the camera just to check out some of the things I want to share with you here. But I hope you can give me some feedback on the episodes we've done so far. Again, what you need in your day-to-day here in February of 2026. What's on your mind? What are you looking forward to? What are you working on in your organization? What do you need as an individual? I'm always challenging myself and trying to think about ways I can improve not only this podcast, but, just my relationships with people in our industry, my friends, my family, my community at IFMA and other places. And that's what this is all about for me. So the themes that will continue to rise up, as you know, on this show will be about the human beings in the mix here. Yes, we're going to talk about asset life cycles and work tech solutions and the way we can implement technology into making a better, more flexible workplace and a more efficient maintenance and operations effort and all the things you must do as a tactical practitioner in this world of the built environment. But I also want to continue to emphasize some of the ways we can improve in our leadership roles and how we can be better communicators and more empathetic and more understanding of the people around us as things continue to change here in 2026 and beyond. So, of course, AI has a big role to play in all of this. I'm going to have guests on that can hopefully give a balanced perspective of the role that artificial intelligence is having and will have in the day-to-day operations and maintenance and people management side of things in our workplaces. But I think I can use the inspiration and motivation as much as anyone because I've been doing this for a long time, folks. You know it. It's been, can you believe it, 10 years. 2026 marks 10 years since my first podcast was published. And even before that, longer, 2015, I published a series of short videos where I was interviewing friends right here in Washington, D.C., my capital chapter of IFMA peeps. You know who you are. You're out there. I can't thank you enough. Back in the day, we did some short form videos, again, very highly edited, very amateurish. They're still available on YouTube. I'd encourage you to go search KREL Connections. In fact, I'll hopefully pop up a screenshot of all the videos that I did, the earliest videos with some of my friends here at the Capital Chapter of IFMA. And I went back and watched a couple, and it's so funny because a lot of what we talked about back then, about the need for community and partnerships and having our industry partner companies, the associate members of IFMA, for example, come through and deliver some great expertise and understanding of new technologies and strategies. And our FM practitioners were looking for that type of partnership. And it wasn't about the sales dynamic, although that's certainly a reality in our world today. We have to prove our value and put out the products and features and things that we can do, but it's about solving problems together. And it's about leaning on each other when we don't understand what we're facing or we're facing something new. Well, there's someone here in our community that has been down this road before, and we can reach out and touch a hand, as my friend Lena Thompson always told me and always reminded me of the great Neil Diamond, you know, hands touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you. These are the things that we have done over the past decade of podcasts, and I hope to continue to mix in this hopefully lighthearted, put a smile on your face, entertaining in some ways kind of content, along with the things that are valuable to you, the practical, you know, introductions at least to people who really know their stuff. They've written books. They've are the ones that are speaking at our IFMA conferences. They're the ones that are out there consulting and offering their services to people like you. So I hope you continue to find those connections here and reach out. Let me know if you need a hand in making those contacts, or if you just want to reach out directly to someone and say, hey, I heard you here on the Workplace Innovator Podcast. Well, listen, as I mentioned, it was 10 years ago. And, you know, after doing this for so long, I know you know me pretty well. Anybody who's been a listener knows that DJ Mike P loves music. I love Star Wars. You know, somebody has commented recently about the Star Wars lunchbox here. In fact, why not? You know, this is first time I'm winging it here a little bit. Let's have a little fun, and I'll give you the behind the scenes here at the Aptura podcast studios. You know, you've seen me here in front of this banner all the time. And yes, this is a real banner. This is not a virtual background. It actually moves. It's there. It kind of allows me to, you know, not have that aura, that digitized globe around my big Conan O'Brien hairdo. But if you look a little deeper, behind the Star Wars lunchbox is more Star Wars paraphernalia and my love for Disney World. And here's a classic from 1977. Oh, let me see if I can do this. There we go. The original poster from Star Wars, Episode 4, but before it was called Episode 4, it was Star Wars A New Hope, or just Star Wars when I was a young child. That's where it all started for me. And I often reference those stories and the way that movies and music inspires me. And over this side of the studio, if you keep scrolling, I see if this comes through. You see my tribute. I got a lot of Star Wars paraphernalia, characters, all kinds of people, things people have given me. Oh, and the top shelf is all of my Washington Nationals bobbleheads. You know, I'm a big baseball fan. Here we are in the most wonderful time of the year for me. Spring is right around the corner, and that means baseball is back, Major League Baseball. I will be heading down, as I often do, to West Palm Beach, Florida, next month, mid-March, for Washington Nationals spring training, and we will see what the team looks like. Can we repeat the heyday, the highs of 2019 when the Nationals captured the World Series championship, or will we be another year of suffering with our young team and our new young manager, and nobody who's watching this really cares? So I'm going to turn off my lightsaber. Hold on. I'm not sure if you heard that. There was some lightsaber hum in the background. But the point being that I've been doing this for a long time, and 10 years has gone by quite fast. And I think that's kind of one of the messages I want to share today, because we're looking ahead now, the next 10 years. What will AI do? What will technology look like? And how can we harness some of these tools and systems to better operate in our facilities? Yes, but in our careers, in our community, and all the things we need to be paying attention to. So I always look to, again, inspiration from books. And, you know, I often talk about how fast things change. I often quote Bill Gates with the quote about technology and the fact that sometimes we overestimate what will happen with this new technology tool in the next 2 years, but we underestimate the change that will happen in the next 10. And this was really apparent to me back in 2016 and 2017 when I gave my first speech at a facility management conference. I started using that analogy of, hey, let's look back 10 years ago. And it was 2017. Let's look back to 2007. And where were you? And what were you doing? And what was the situation? Well, at that time, it was a great example was the new technology in 2007 was the introduction of the iPhone, and the smartphone revolution began. And in those first couple of years, we didn't really, or some of us didn't think it was going to change the world. Some of us did. And, but it clearly 10 years later, when you go down the road a decade and look back, then you see this amazing amount of change. So I was searching some of my notes from that period of time and over the last 5 years or so, and some of the conversations I was having. And a quote that rose up to me in this theme, which I think you might find interesting, is from the great C.S. Lewis. You know, C.S. Lewis, the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, and such an incredible, adventure thinker. He's a great friend of J.R.R. Tolkien, who was writing Lord of the Rings the same time he was writing the Narnia series. And they were like best friends over at Oxford University. And they would sit in a bar and share stories and encourage each other. Well, one of his quotes that I thought was really appropriate here was, isn't it funny how day to day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different. And isn't that true? Here we are, 2026. I'm still doing a lot of the same things I was doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, much more virtual first these days, but I do still try to get out a lot. I know you do. Try to find time to connect in real life with other human beings and make those connections. And those are the topics that keep coming up again and again on these shows, is the new world of work in the workplace, hybrid working, understanding the needs of our people as we shape and design our physical workplaces to accommodate those needs, and the psychology behind it all, the human experience. I've got some great guests coming on that you know well. Dr. Tracy Brower of Steelcase will be back, and she's got a new book coming out in March, and I can't wait to talk to her about that. But I love, as you know, talking with sociologists and psychologists who can really help me understand some of the human dynamics that we all experience and the paradoxes of life and paradoxes of the workplace. And that was one of the themes that really came up in recent years is I would kind of see two things happening at once. During the pandemic, the truth that there are two truths at the same time regarding technology. Technology made us more connected than ever before. We all experienced it on Zoom and other virtual connection across the globe. You could be friends with anybody, anywhere, at any time, and that was certainly true. But at the same time, paradoxically, we were dealing with isolation and loneliness and a real mental health well-being crisis, which has been well documented, that as we sit here in our hobbit holes, stuck behind a virtual connection, it's not the same as being with those people in real life and having those opportunities to rub shoulders with people, share, see their facial expressions, their body language, and really become connected in that way. So that's something that we know to be true, both things. It's a paradox. And as I was searching my notes through really about 5 years ago, during the pandemic, as it was beginning, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos and TED Talks and reading some books, although I'm not really a book reader. Anybody who knows me knows I don't actually read the books. I'm more of an audio book guy. But Brene Brown, I'm sure you've heard of her. Brene Brown has really been out there. She had a podcast, I think she still does, dealing with authenticity and a lot of some of the, these things we're talking about, emotional intelligence and being your authentic self and balancing, leading different people who are different than we are, and also working on teams where people are of different personality types, different backgrounds. We love that diversity of perspective is a powerful tool, but it takes effort and takes, a skill to lead a team, but also just to work within our teams. I talked about this with Rex Miller, if you watch that episode, where he talks about genius spark and the Clifton strengths, I think it's called, where you can analyze your psycho makeup and your psychological makeup and then know what your strengths are, and then be able to better understand the differences in the strengths of others on your team. And that's not a bad thing. We want differences. In fact, that's a healthy friction that comes together. And I know it works for me here at Aptura in my marketing team. I do some things very well, I hope, I try. And I have people on my team who keep me accountable on a schedule. I'm not good with schedules. I'm not good with, filling out paperwork. So there are people that are really good with that. And they're also good with the website, and they're good with publishing on social media. And I have a wonderful team here that supports this podcast. So it is not just the DJ Mike P show, for sure. It's everybody. And you have the same going on in your world, right? So the Brene Brown concept or quote that she was sharing had a lot to do with the paradox of, vulnerability. And she says a lot of things about fitting in is not the same thing as belonging, because we do want belonging, right? We want to create environments and cultures within our organizations where people feel like they belong and they're aligned with the mission and the vision of our organizations. And that's certainly something we've talked about a lot here. And she shares this idea that fitting in involves, assessing a situation and then kind of changing yourself consciously, your behavior, your opinions, your appearance, to try to fit in, where we don't want that. We want belonging. We want you to be able to show up as your true authentic self. And then even if you're imperfect, we're all imperfect, and then find a way to connect with that team, with that organization, and deliver value as an individual contributor who is different, but also is being their authentic self. And I say that in a sense, not to share all my problems and personal issues with everybody else around me, but being who I am is a good thing, and being who you are is a good thing. And by bringing those together, we can, innovate, and we can move the needle as leaders. In fact, the quote that Brene Brown said in one of her specials, I think it was on YouTube, is, if you're not willing to fail, you can't innovate. If you're not willing to build a vulnerable culture, you can't create. It's just that simple. And that reminded me of a lot of the concepts, we've talked about here. Many of my guests, as I ask them for their favorite book or inspirational quote, they'll reference Simon Sinek and his work, with start with why, the book and the philosophy and the leadership, moving the needle when it comes to setting that purpose and casting that vision and then inspiring people to be a part of that cause or that mission. And then therefore we believe we can contribute, and each of us does bring something special to the table. My favorite marketing guru in that same vein, and I've mentioned him many, many times here on this show, it's Seth Godin, the brilliant marketer, thought leader who understands human behavior, and he applies it not only to the world of advertising and marketing, he's done that for decades, but in recent years, he's just been a voice that has really resonated in my mind when it comes to understanding myself and how I operate in the world and how I operate in my organization and as a podcast host and what I'm trying to deliver here. And he talks a lot about paradoxes too. In fact, I'll let you in on a little secret because it's been, a couple of years now since I first reached out to him. I have tried to get Seth Godin on this podcast. Many of you, friends of mine, have said, Mike, you talk about Seth all the time. Why don't you ask him to be on the show? And I've emailed him and he's emailed me back. And he said, Mike, thanks a lot. Really busy right now. Or Mike, thanks a lot. I'm not doing podcasts right now. And I'm going to keep trying. I hope maybe even Seth sees this and says, all right, this guy, here he is all alone. We need him, help him out. Let's get a video going with Seth Godin and DJ Mike P. But anyway, fingers crossed, someday hopes and dreams will come true. But one of Seth's ideas that he shared over the last several years, and I can't remember where, but I have notes about it. It was probably on his podcast. He has a podcast, I think it's still active, called Akimbo, Akimbo, I think, Akimbo. And it's brilliant. If you go back, we'll start from the beginning. Some of the earliest episodes I just really love and I listen to over and over again. But he talked about certain paradoxes in marketing related to, let me get this right, the connection between empathy and consistency seems like a paradox. And I'm like, well, he talked about it in terms of understanding your customer and then marketing and communicating to your customer. But I looked it up on the internet, the Google, the machine. And there's an article in Psychology Today, which explains this even better. So empathy, and we all want to be empathetic leaders, we want to be empathetic people. Empathy can be or is fluid and dynamic. So empathy involves attunement to others' feelings, which are constantly changing and demanding that flexibility. Whereas consistency is stable and static. So consistency requires a steady, reliable, and often unchanging approach to interactions. So the conflict there is if you're consistent in your emotional state, if you're always calm, say as a leader or a manager, you may fail to show enough empathy to someone who's experiencing a high level of emotions for whatever they're going through. And if you're too empathetic and you mirror how those emotions are being reflected by that individual, then you may become overwhelmed and burned out, and you're trying to manage everybody else's feelings and challenges at the same time as you're trying to run a team. So I thought that was really interesting. So Seth addresses this directly. He says there are two imperatives I want to share with you here. He says we need to see others for who they are, what they believe, for their fears and dreams and desires, and for the connections they seek to make. So that's all of us. We all want to make connections in our workplaces, in our personal lives, at IFMA, wherever we are. But on the other hand, we need to know that frequency and consistency always works in the marketplace, showing up in a reliable way and making promises and keeping them. So we need to find a group of people who shares our values, and then we show up consistently for those people that we seek to serve. And really, I'm not sure if I'm explaining all this well, but it really does get to the core of what I feel my role is here and my mission as I bring these interviews to you, these podcasts, and now these videos. I always preach, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Get out of your comfort zone. That's another quote from Seth Godin, just paraphrasing it. But the idea, the concept of, hey, getting out of your comfort zone, doing something you're not good at yet and not used to, or doing something that makes you uncomfortable is emotional labor. It hurts, it's painful, and it takes the energy out of you. So I'm trying to do it here and practice what I preach by these moves towards making more video content and trying to share with different people and, rolling the dice and hoping you see value in what we're doing here. And Seth talks about that group that sees the same, not the same as you, but they see the value in these similar philosophies and these ideas that we're sharing and the mission to elevate and inspire the facility management community and the world of corporate real estate and the workplace and trying to make our places and spaces, places where people can flourish and thrive and be productive, yes, and meet the needs of their organization and, attain our goals. It's what it's all about. It's all integrated and all connected. And he talks about this a lot in his book, Tribes, which again, I can't recommend enough because it's an understanding of how humans operate. And by understanding that, you can be a better leader, a better team member, and a better person, a better workplace innovator, or a better asset champion, depending on which podcast you're listening to. All right, I'm looking at the clock. The time goes by so fast. I'm sitting here talking and it's just going by really fast. I'll just take a moment and just to leave you with a quote or two that can help inspire you as we try to stay on top of things and upskill and learn to adapt into the new world of the workplace. Again, a Seth Godin quote, "If you're not uncomfortable in your work as a leader, it's almost certain that you're not reaching your potential as a leader." So I hope you will get out of your comfort zone, continue to grow, learn how to be more emotionally intelligent and ready to care for your team. And a final thought as we head to the next 10 years, we'll end where we began, and that's with a quote from C.S. Lewis. And he says, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." So I take that from someone who wrote one of the greatest adventure series of all time and was friends with, again, Tolkien, who wrote maybe the greatest adventure hero's journey of all time, The Lord of the Rings and Narnia. And maybe George Lucas would agree with this because Star Wars is part of this equation as well. I hope you'll continue on that hero's journey because you do have a role to play. And I hope in some small way we are encouraging you and inspiring you here on this podcast as we continue to want to be workplace innovators and asset champions. And until next time, everybody, thank you for joining me, and we'll talk soon. Peace out, everybody.